So thanks for joining me for another video, guys. Welcome to the Random Watch Dude channel, and if you haven't watched any of my videos before, I'm just a random watch dude who likes to make videos about my watch journey. I'm not an expert. I'm not here to really guide you through making decisions on what watch to buy instead of the other, which is a Rolex killer, which is the affordable alternative to a Nautilus. No, I'm not here. I'm not going to make videos telling you what you should do. However, today is a bit of an exception because I would like to make a video, and this is a video which I've been thinking about making for a long time. And actually it was one of our subscribers to the channel, John Bauman, that actually dropped in the comments just recently after my video that I made last week, and he wanted me to make a video where I talked about the finances of the watch hobby, because John had a concern, and I think like a lot of people do, over finances and how a lot of people in the watch hobby are financing the watch hobby. And look, it goes without saying that you know, if you want to be in the game, if you like, of collecting wristwatches, you can, if you're not careful, get really carried away with the financial side of things. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble. So today's video, guys, I'm going to talk about the sensible way to finance the watch hobby, and I'm going to talk to you about, give you some practical ideas and give you some practical reasons not to get carried away, and how to set a budget in this hobby, which can be very expensive. So just like any hobby, you can get obsessed. Now I think this is a bit of a guy thing as well. I think this is a bit of a man thing that we do sometimes. When we get a hobby, we get a bit obsessed over it. And when we get obsessed about things, we can become compulsive. Now, in the watch hobby, in the watch collecting hobby, being compulsive is a really bad idea. Why is it a bad idea? Because typically it means you're going to end up spending money that you hadn't planned to. So when you end up spending money that you hadn't planned to, it rarely ends up going well. So I'm going to give you some ways of just slowing down in the process and making sure that you're making good decisions, sound financial decisions, guys. And I've got five tips for you, 5 key points that I want to share with you in this video. Point number one is do your due diligence. Don't ever buy a watch that you don't fully understand. Don't ever buy a watch on a whim. Make sure that you're buying a watch for the right reasons. Make sure you understand the technicalities of the watch. Make sure you understand the basics. Is it a quartz? Is it an automatic? But right up to the really deep technical side of it, which is how much is it going to cost me to service? How long is the warranty on the watch? There are some watch companies, guys, that give you a 10-year warranty. I recently just bought a Panerai Luminor. It's got an 8-year warranty. Even Rolex and Omega, for example, and Tudor give you a 5-year warranty. Whereas some watch companies only give you a 2-year warranty, and I think some of the micro brands may only guarantee a watch for a year. So be very careful, guys. Do your due diligence. Make sure you understand not just how much is the watch going to cost me to buy, but make sure you understand all of the technicalities around the watch, how much it's going to cost you to maintain and service, because those costs, trust me, over 10 years can go up very significantly, particularly if you're going to buy, let's say, a used watch which is already 10 years old. Nothing wrong with that, but if that watch is literally due a service as soon as you get it into your hot little hands, and that service is going to cost you $1,500, well, that is a very quick way to take the gloss off of that purchase, guys. So do your due diligence. Make sure you understand before you buy a watch what you're getting yourself in for. Point number two is set a budget. Now this is a rule in life, isn't it, really? Set a budget. This doesn't just apply to watches, this applies to cars, this applies to houses, this applies to holidays, this applies to pretty much everything. It applies when you go grocery shopping. You know, you set yourself a budget. You think, okay, I can't spend more than $300 when I go grocery shopping this afternoon. And you kind of, when you're going around walking around the supermarket, you might say to yourself, do you know what? I'm not going to buy those really expensive toilet rolls. I'm going to buy the really cheap ones because, you know, I need to make sure that I'm not going to go over budget. And, you know, my advice, guys, is buy the really cheap home brand tins of baked beans. Baked beans, guys, which is my staple diet. Buy the really cheap brand of baked beans. And then you can get the really nice expensive chocolate that you might enjoy after dinner. So set a budget, guys, you know, set a budget. This is really important. So I've got some tips also for setting a budget with watches, because you can make budgeting really enjoyable. It doesn't have to be painful. So if I could give anybody that's going into the watch hobby just one piece of advice, if I could give everybody just one piece of advice, it would be this. Set aside an amount of money in a separate bank account, and that's your watch kitty. Okay, that's your watch account. You can keep adding into that account every month or every week whenever you get paid. You can put 50 in there, 100 in there, a couple of hundred, couple of thousand, whatever works for you. Start putting money into this separate watch account. When you get to a stage where you really like a watch and you think, do you know what, I think I want to pull this trigger and I want to buy this new Tudor Pelagos FXD GMT. It's going to cost me $8,000, but I love it so much that I want to buy it. Go and have a look in your watch account, your separate watch account that you've set up as a sub account to your normal account, to your savings accounts, and say, have I got the money? If the answer is no, don't buy it. And this is a very, very simple principle that I want to share with you, is if you don't have the money, the budgeted amount of money in your separate watch account to buy the watch you want, you can't buy it. If you were to stick to that golden rule of budgeting for watches, you won't go wrong and you will enjoy the hobby a lot more. Now, budgeting can be enjoyable, of course. It doesn't have to be a pain. You can enjoy watching your watch budget, your watch kitty grow and grow and grow. And here's some really good ideas as well, because when you get to 1,000, let's say you get to 1,000 after a few weeks or a few months, and you say, right, I can buy that nice Seiko Presage now. You don't have to buy it just because you've got the money. You might look at it and say, well, actually, if I save up for another 2 or 3 months or another 6 months or another year, that'll get me into Omega Seamaster territory. I'll be able to get myself a used Omega Seamaster because they're $4,000 now. So I tell you what, I'm just going to keep saving. And the anticipation of this larger purchase is such an enjoyable process as well, isn't it? The anticipation of buying a watch. So that budget, that watch kitty, can be really, really beneficial in a lot of ways. It prevents you from overspending. It prevents you from spending money that essentially you don't have. And it can be really, really enjoyable watching your kitty grow whilst you're enjoying the content on YouTube and all the reviews that you watch, all the Googling you can do about specific models that you might be interested in. That process of waiting for a watch is really enjoyable, and waiting for that watch whilst your watch kitty is growing in size, actually I think makes it even more enjoyable. That's the way I've always bought watches, guys. I've always bought watches using money that I've got in a separate watch account, and if the money's not in that account, it means I can't have the watch, and that's just tough luck, and that's just the way it works. So that's number 2, guys, is set yourself a budget. Have a separate watch kitty or a separate watch account, whatever you want to call it. Put money into it, and if you've got enough money in there to buy the watch you want, great. If you haven't, bad luck. So tip number three, and it kind of cascades down from tip number 2 about budgeting and setting up a watch account. Tip number 3, guys, never, ever, ever, ever borrow money, take out a bank loan, take out a loan of any kind to buy a watch. Just don't do it. It's irresponsible, and it actually means that watch is out of your league. To be quite frank, it means that watch is out of your league. If you don't have the money, if you don't have the budget for that watch, and it means that if you really want that watch, that you've got to go and borrow money from somewhere else or someone else to buy that watch, it's irresponsible and you can't afford it. Okay, I'm not going to be any clearer than that. Just don't do it. Which leads on to tip number 4, which is learn to enjoy what you have. If you've got one watch, if you've got 10 watches, if you've got 100 watches, there is always the potential, it doesn't matter how many watches you've got, there is always the potential for you to want another one. This is what I've come to learn about the watch hobby. You will always want another watch. You know, I get really annoyed with my 12-year-old son. I've got 2 boys. I've got a 12-year-old son. He's very much like me. He's always thinking about what can I get next, and it drives me nuts. And I have to keep lecturing him on just being happy with what you have. Now, this is a rule that I sometimes forget, because with the watch hobby, I'm quite often dissatisfied and want another watch. I always want more. You know, even when I've got a fantastic selection, which I have right now, of 7 or 8 watches, I'm always thinking about the next watch. What can I have next? So learning, and this is a lesson that I understand that this lesson needs to be learned, but it also needs to be constantly reminded to you as well. And I have to keep reminding myself, just the same way that I have to keep reminding my 12-year-old son, learn to enjoy what you have. I can't be any clearer than that. It's hard. It's hard. Number five is set a limit, either on the number of watches that you have in a collection, or set a limit on the value of your total collection. Now, this is kind of a way of budgeting as well. It's a way of self-controlling yourself, because if we didn't put these rules in place, guys, we would just keep buying watches. We'd borrow money, we'd be massively in debt. So keep a sense of perspective and set limits. You have to set limits around your hobby. You have to set limits around your level of anxiety, and I think the best way to do that is to set a limit either on your collection size or on the value. Now, the way I do it is I have now got to a stage where I've set a limit not on the value but on the collection size. So my limit on size is 10 watches. Okay, if I have more than 8 or 9 watches, I tend to start to get quite anxious. So I've now set a limit of 10 watches in my collection. I'm currently on 8. So technically I have a gap. I can go out and buy 2 more watches if I wanted to. And I'm looking at actually a couple right now. Doesn't mean to say that I'm going to buy them, because I enjoy the anticipation of thinking about buying them. Do I have the money in my kitty? For one of them, yes. So, you know, I could potentially go out and buy one of them today, tomorrow, because it's not a watch that I have to beg for or put the knee pads on for to go and ask an AD if I can please have one. This is a watch that I can buy myself on the secondary market. There's plenty available. I could go and buy one tomorrow because I've got the watch money in the watch money kitty. But I'm actually quite enjoying the process of just looking and anticipation as well. So, you know, set limits on yourself. You know, this is really, really important. Set a limit on the size of the collection or the value of the collection. And, you know, if you get to, let's say you get to 10 watches and you see another watch come up and you think, oh, I really want that watch, but it's kind of at the limit. Well, here's an idea. Have a, and this is very common, of course, have a 1 in, 1 out policy. So if you decide that you really must have that new Tudor Pelagos FXD with the GMT hand and the date wheel, or if you've decided, God bless you, if you can afford the new Patek Philippe Cubitus because you really, really want to have those saw cubes, then honestly, that's great. But if you've already hit the limit of your collection size or your collection value, what that means is you've got to sell a watch from your current collection. And this takes you to a really good spot where you can say, how much do I really want that watch? How much do I love that FXD? How much do I love that Cubitus? So much that I'm actually prepared to let one of my other existing watches go from my collection. Now, that's a really good habit to get into, guys, because that helps you determine how much you really want that watch, or how much you're just being sucked into the hype machine. And we all know that the hype machine, with the emotional attachments that all these watch manufacturers know that we have to our watches, they will do everything to make you make a spontaneous emotional purchase. They will do everything they possibly can to make that happen, to separate you from your money And so you have to be disciplined and say, okay, so Patek Philippe or Tudor or Rolex or Omega, they want to separate me from my money, and they'll tell me what I want to hear to separate me from my money. So I have to be disciplined. How much do I want that watch? Do I want that watch enough to let my Submariner go, for example? And that, guys, is my final tip, is try and set a limit on the whole hobby. Try and set a limit on your collection size and the finances that you pump into it. Keep a sense of perspective, and you know, maybe I'll finish on one final piece of advice is, you know, there are far more important things in life for you to be spending your money on, far more important things in life. And let's be honest, you know, when it comes to the end, you know, when you get to the end of your days, and if you're lucky enough, if you're privileged enough to grow old, in this world that we live in now, I think growing old is actually a privilege that very few people get to see. If you're lucky enough and privileged enough to grow old and sit in your last days in your chair or lying in your bed, what are you going to think about? What have you got left? You've got memories, and what do you want those memories to be of? Realistically, do you want them to be of all the lovely watches that you owned, that your family can't wait to sell once you've passed away? Or do you want your final memories, do you want your final thoughts to be about the wonderful family and the wonderful experiences that you've had with your family, the wonderful house that you allowed your children to grow up in, and all the wonderful things that you were able to do, the wonderful holidays? You know, that's what it's about, guys. So be very, very careful with what you choose to spend your money on, because, you know, later in life you may regret it if you pump all your money into watches, and also if you borrow money to buy watches, which I'm going to finish on this actually. Don't ever borrow money to buy watches, guys. It's really, really irresponsible. So good luck, guys. I hope this video has helped to some degree to put some things in perspective. It's really just a thought download. I haven't put too much preparation into this video, as you can probably tell. It's just a thought download on how to set a budget for watches and keeping things in perspective. Please do let me know your thoughts on this. I think this is a subject which is, and John, the subscriber, was very clear on this too. It's a subject that doesn't get discussed enough, is how much money gets spent on watches, and there are a lot of people out there that make themselves broke on this hobby, and that just is not fun. So please drop some comments if you've got any advice for the viewers. Please drop that in the comments section. If you like this video, please do tick the like, and look, I'd be absolutely overwhelmed, and thank you very much if you chose to subscribe to the channel as well. Just having more subscribers and more viewers encourages me to make more videos. Got lots of things I want to talk about, guys, and as you can tell, I do spend a lot of time talking. So if you've made it to this stage of the video, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers.